Dr. Emily Carter stood on the observation deck of the Nereus Explorer, her gaze fixed on the endless expanse of water stretching to the horizon. The Pacific Ocean glimmered under the early morning sun, its surface deceptively calm. Beneath it lay the Mariana Trench, the deepest, most unexplored part of the Earth, a chasm that had haunted her dreams since she first opened a textbook on marine biology as a child. Her hands rested on the metal railing, knuckles pale against the salt-sprayed steel. This wasn't just another mission. It was the mission. Years of relentless research, countless grant proposals, and sleepless nights had led to this moment. A dive into a world less explored than the surface of Mars. Behind her, the deck hummed with activity. Crew members bustled about, checking equipment and securing supplies. The Nereus Explorer was a marvel of modern engineering, built for one purpose: to study the most extreme depths of the ocean. Its state-of-the-art submersible, the Abyssal Diver, was designed to withstand pressures that would crush a lesser craft like a tin can. Inside that submersible, Emily and her team would descend over 11 kilometers into darkness, searching for life in a place that defied every rule of biology. Her team was small, hand-picked for their expertise and resilience. Samir Patel, the unshakable pilot, leaned casually against the submersible, chewing on the end of a pencil as he reviewed the dive plan. His calm demeanor had earned him the nickname Stoneface during training, and it was a trait Emily had come to appreciate during high-pressure situations. Next to him was Dr. Lena Cho, her glasses perched precariously on her nose as she pored over a tablet, displaying maps of the trench floor. Lena had a fascination, some might say obsession, with extremophiles, organisms that thrived in the most hostile environments. She'd once spent weeks in the Arctic studying microbes that lived under ice, and her excitement for this mission was palpable. Marcus Vance, the team's rugged engineer, strode across the deck carrying a toolbox. A former Navy man, Marcus had a talent for keeping things running smoothly, even under the most adverse conditions. His easygoing humor often diffused tension, though Emily knew he took his responsibilities as seriously as anyone. As the last of the supplies were loaded into the Abyssal Diver, Emily called her team together for a final briefing. They gathered in the ship's control room, its walls lined with monitors displaying telemetry data, sonar readings, and live feeds from the submersible. Emily's voice was steady, but the gravity of her words hung in the air. We're venturing into a place where life has adapted to pressures and darkness that would obliterate us. We'll be seeing organisms that have never been documented, perhaps even life forms that challenge our understanding of biology. This is a rare privilege, but it comes with risks. She paused, letting her gaze settle on each team member in turn. Communication with the surface will be limited. If something goes wrong down there, we'll need to rely on each other. Follow protocol, stay focused, and remember why we're here. Samir raised a hand. And if we find something that wants to eat us? The room chuckled, tension breaking for a brief moment. Emily smiled faintly. Then we'll hope it's not hungry. With the briefing concluded, the team suited up. The air was electric with anticipation as they boarded the submersible. Emily took her place at the observation station, her seat surrounded by screens displaying the sub's external cameras and instruments. Lena settled into the co-pilot's chair, eagerly checking the equipment. Samir, at the helm, began the pre-dive sequence, his hands moving over the controls with practiced precision. The Abyssal Diver shuddered as it was lowered into the water. Emily watched through the viewport as sunlight streamed through the waves, scattering into a kaleidoscope of shifting blues and greens. The surface grew more distant with every passing second until it vanished entirely. Inside the sub, the mood was subdued. The only sounds were the hum of the engines and the occasional beep of instruments. Emily leaned back, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. The deeper they descended, the more the world transformed. The sunlight faded, replaced by an inky darkness, broken only by the glow of the sub's floodlights. Strange creatures darted in and out of the beams, delicate jellyfish with trailing tendrils, shrimp that glowed like embers, and fish with jagged teeth and eyes that seemed too large for their heads. "This is incredible," Lena murmured, her face pressed to the viewport. "We're seeing things that have probably never seen light." Emily nodded but said nothing. She was focused on the sonar, which was already picking up signals, echoes bouncing off the walls of the trench as they approached its edge. A map on the screen showed their position relative to the ocean floor. They were approaching Challenger Deep, the lowest point of the trench and the primary target of their expedition. "This is it," Samir said, his voice breaking the silence. "We're officially past the point of no return." Emily glanced at him, her lips tightening into a determined smile. "Then let's make history." The sub tilted forward, descending into the abyss. Around them, the darkness grew absolute, the ocean's crushing silence punctuated only by the faint hum of the sub's systems. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, though she knew it was impossible. Nothing could survive here in the lightless, airless depths. Or so she thought. As the sonar emitted a faint ping, Emily leaned forward, her pulse quickening. Something was moving down there, large and slow, just at the edge of the trench floor. Her hand tightened on the armrest as she stared at the screen. "Everyone stay sharp," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "We're not alone." For the first time, the exhilaration in the submersible was tinged with unease. The trench was alive in ways they hadn't anticipated, and they were about to find out just how dangerous that life could be. The descent into the Mariana Trench was like entering another world, a realm where natural laws felt warped, where the boundaries between life and geology blurred. The floodlights of the abyssal diver pierced the darkness, revealing fleeting glimpses of a world humanity had barely touched. "Depth 5,000 meters, Samir reported, his voice calm and steady. The submersible's instruments whirred and beeped softly, their glowing screens the only source of warmth in the cramped cabin. Emily sat forward, her eyes locked on the viewport, which displayed the shifting terrain of the trench walls. Jagged formations jutted out like the bones of a colossal beast, their surfaces slick with translucent, gelatinous organisms. Lena pressed her face closer to the glass. "Look at that," she whispered, pointing toward a cluster of strange creatures attached to the rocky surface. They resembled translucent sea cucumbers, but their bodies were covered in long, writhing tendrils that emitted a faint, bioluminescent glow. "Some kind of scavenger," Emily guessed, scribbling in her notebook. "They're probably feeding on detritus drifting down from the upper layers." Marcus leaned over her shoulder, squinting. "Or each other. Looks like one's already missing a chunk." Lena chuckled nervously but didn't look away. "Everything down here looks like it's straight out of a nightmare," she said, snapping a photo with the onboard camera. "But it's all so beautiful, in its own horrifying way." Emily couldn't argue. The trench was alive with an eerie vibrancy, its inhabitants glowing softly in the vast darkness. They saw spindly shrimp with claws nearly as long as their bodies, jellyfish that pulsed with alternating bands of light and shadow, and strange, eel-like fish with needle-sharp teeth and eyes that seemed to watch them as they passed. "Depth, 7,000 meters, Samir announced. The submersible creaked as the pressure increased, its hull groaning faintly under the weight of the ocean above. The sound sent a shiver through the cabin, but no one spoke. They all knew the risks. Even with its reinforced plating, the abyssal diver wasn't invincible. The sonar pinged again, its rhythmic tone filling the cabin. Emily glanced at the monitor where a faint, oblong shape appeared on the edge of the trench floor. It was large, far larger than any fish or known sea creature. "What's that?" she asked, leaning closer. Samir adjusted the controls, bringing the submersible's cameras to bear on the object. The lights swept over a massive rock formation, its surface shimmering with what appeared to be anemones. But as the cameras zoomed in, it became clear that the shimmering wasn't caused by plant life. It was movement. Tiny organisms crawled across the surface, their bodies segmented and spiny like oversized, bioluminescent isopods. "They're everywhere," Lena breathed, her voice a mix of fascination and dread. "Look at the density. It's like the entire trench wall is alive." Emily's stomach churned as she watched the creatures writhe over each other, their spines reflecting the light in sharp, jagged patterns. Something about the way they moved felt wrong, too synchronized, too deliberate. "Don't get too close," she said, her voice taut. Samir grinned. "You think they're gonna jump on us? I thought I was the paranoid one." The lightheartedness in his tone didn't ease the tension. The submersible's floodlights illuminated the trench floor below, revealing more of the crawling organisms, as well as other stranger forms. A field of towering, spire-like structures rose from the sediment, their surfaces smooth and organic, as though they had been grown rather than formed. Faint pulses of light traveled up and down their lengths, casting ghostly shadows. "What are those?" Marcus asked, his voice quieter now. "They look alive." Lena shook her head, her brow furrowed. "I've never seen anything like this. They almost look like vascular tissue." "Vascular tissue?" Marcus snorted. "You mean like veins?" "Exactly," Lena said, ignoring his tone. "But these things are massive. They have to be meters high. Whatever they are, they're drawing nutrients from the sediment or something below it." Emily scribbled furiously in her notebook, but her hand shook. She couldn't shake the growing unease in her chest. Something about this place felt deeply unnatural, like they were intruders in a forbidden space. The spire seemed to pulse in time with the sonar's pings, as though responding to their presence. "Depth, 9,500 meters, Samir said, breaking the silence. "We're getting close to the bottom." The submersible continued its descent, the trench walls narrowing around them like a great stone throat. The sonar pinged again, this time louder and faster, as though something was moving ahead of them. Emily's eyes flicked to the monitor, where a new shape appeared. It was massive, its contours unclear, but unmistakably alive. "Stop," Emily said sharply. Samir slowed the sub, the hum of the engines fading into the crushing silence. The shape remained stationary, its outline blurred by the murkiness of the water. Emily's breath caught as the floodlights swept across it, revealing an enormous lattice-like structure stretching across the trench floor. It pulsed faintly with light, the patterns shifting and flowing like a living heartbeat. The structure was intricate and organic, resembling a spider's web made of translucent strands. Tiny motes of bioluminescent light drifted around it, creating an otherworldly glow. "What the hell is that?" Marcus muttered. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "It's not coral. It's something else." Lena's eyes widened as she examined the readings. "The composition isn't mineral. It's organic, but I can't tell what it is. It's giving off faint electrical signals, almost like neurons firing." The realization hit Emily like a wave. It's some kind of living system. Before anyone could respond, the lattice began to vibrate. The sonar emitted a strange, irregular tone, as though the system was struggling to process what it was detecting. The vibrations grew stronger, the pulses of light intensifying. "Samir, back us off," Emily ordered. He nodded, but before he could react, the submersible shuddered violently. A deep, resonant hum filled the cabin, rattling their teeth and vibrating through their bones. The lights flickered, and for a moment everything went dark. When the lights came back on, the lattice was still there, its glow now brighter, more urgent. Emily's pulse raced as she watched the tendrils of light weave through the structure, as though it were reacting to their presence. "We need a sample," Lena said suddenly, her voice trembling with excitement. Emily hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to leave, but she knew they couldn't leave without collecting data. "Fine," she said, quickly and carefully. The robotic arm extended, its claw reaching toward the lattice. As soon as it made contact, the structure seemed to ripple, its glow shifting to a deep, ominous red. Emily's chest tightened as the submersible trembled again, and the sonar emitted a low, echoing tone. "Get us out of here," she said, her voice rising. Samir didn't need to be told twice. The engines roared to life, pulling them away from the lattice. But as they ascended, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was following them, its presence a shadow pressing against the edges of her mind. For the first time, she felt genuine fear. The trench wasn't just alive, it was watching, and it didn't want them to leave. Continuation of the story, coming soon.